guys, it's about that time. So if you don't mind coming to find your seats, we'll get started with today's program. So first, I wanted to say good afternoon. We are so happy to have you guys here with us today. I am Carrie Barnes. I work for Georgia EMC on the Community and Leadership Development team. So in 2016, I was sitting in the seats of these young professionals as a young game changer participant. And let me tell you, after several months of working my tail off, I was exhausted and I was very excited for the final presentation to the community. And I will say that since then, even though that long, hard slog through that program at the time felt challenging, when I spoke to the program director at the time, I said, hey, can I help you with this next year? Because professionally, this is what I do. I work with communities and leadership programs across the state. And so I've been involved with every Young Game Changers program since 2016. And I even got to sneak my way onto the Georgia Forward board. Georgia Forward is the statewide organization that oversees Young Game Changers, and it's actually a nonprofit organization focused on uniting all Georgians, and it is under the umbrella of the Georgia Municipal Association. So there are a lot of organizations and lots of folks who are really important to making this program successful. So before we get started, I'm just going to give you a little bit of information about Young Game Changers, and then we will get to hear really the most exciting part of today, their recommendations for the City of Columbus and Muskogee County. So Young Game Changers was an idea that came out of Georgia Forward's forum, which we're actually having tomorrow if anybody is interested in attending. But the Young Game Changers program is unlike any other leadership program in this state. It brings together 45 young professionals from all different communities, all different backgrounds, and brings them to one community to work on 4 particular challenges that are unique and specific to that community. So I'm curious, has anybody ever gone through a leadership program? Yeah? Oh, good job, guys. Strong leaders here. I'm glad to see it. So I'm curious, what do you feel like are the skills and abilities that you learned about being a strong leader in that program? This is participatory, so I'd love to hear from you. What do you think are some of the skills and abilities needed to be an effective leader?
Team building.
Team building. Open communication.
Speak up.
Being able to speak up. Are you telling me to speak up? One more time.
Active listening.
Being an active listener. Anyone else? So I'm curious, when you went through those programs, were those the things you learned how to do in those programs? Because I'll say a lot of leadership programs are aimed at teaching you, telling you what it means to be a strong leader. The difference with a traditional leadership program and what we do in Young Game Changers is we say this is a leadership and action program. So not only did these 45 young professionals learn about being strong leaders, they practiced it, right? They have been strong listeners. They have been speaking up. They have been developing their strong communication skills. And they're doing it to the benefit of a single community, which I think is incredibly valuable. So this program is made up of 3 different segments. A third of the class is from Columbus and are local to this area. A third of the class is from Metro Atlanta, and a third of the class is from Greater Georgia. So the other thing I love about that is now we have this beautiful cohort of local folks who are involved and engaged with these ideas and will help to hopefully lead some of these things and bring it to fruition. So again, I am incredibly passionate about the work that this organization does. I think it is very important. And again, I'm so thankful to everyone who's here today and everyone who is joining us on live stream, because even as we go through today and have some time to think about what does the future of Columbus look like, this is not something that happens in a silo. This is absolutely, one of the things that I tell communities is that the kinds of challenges that we face in communities cannot be solved by one organization or one person alone. It really takes all of us working together. So as we go through today and as you listen to the ideas that are coming across your plate, I really encourage you to think about which of these ideas sparks a light in you. What interests you? What's something that you could get involved and engaged in? Because I saw those hands of all those strong leaders that you just said you were in this community, right? So I want to think about how can we all work on these ideas together to accomplish them. The other thing that I definitely need to say is thank you to our sponsors. Like I said, this program would not be successful without all of the people in the room, all of the people on this slide who made this happen. So we are incredibly thankful to each and every one of our sponsors. So thank you guys again today. So I believe that Counselor Tyson Beckley is going to come speak next. So come on up and join us.
Good afternoon, everyone. Obviously, Columbus is glad to be the host community for Young Gamechangers for 2023. We want Columbus to grow in a positive and progressive way. And who better to help us do that than a group of Georgia's best and brightest, a group of outside of the box thinkers who are no too close to the issues we grapple with locally. They work for months to evaluate issues with economic development to quality of life, and we look forward to hearing what they come up with. Just in my own opinion, I think that now in serving for the government, I feel like a lot of times we forget that the people in government are just normal people. A lot of times they've got families, they've got jobs, and just like us, they've only got 24 hours in a day. And so while we like to think that they are constantly focused on how to improve the community, the reality is that sometimes they're just trying to do their job to the best of their ability. And so that leaves it to the citizens to come up with ideas, and most citizens are really focused on their families and their jobs as well. And so what it comes down to is that the quality of our communities are dependent upon the people who get actively involved, the people in this room who say that I feel like this is a big issue and I'm going to research it, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to actively chase it down to try to see change in my community because it's something I believe in. And if it wasn't for the people in this room who really dedicate their time and efforts to those changes, we wouldn't see progress in our communities a lot of times. And so the purpose statement of uniting our state, strengthening communities, and creating a talent pipeline within Georgia obviously resonates with us. It's obviously nice to see so many representatives of Columbus in this room. I'm excited to see the ideas that they have brought to the table. Because I do think, as we heard just a second ago, you do have to listen and speak up. I've definitely had times where I've got phone calls from constituents and they will lecture me for 10 minutes and I don't even get a word in. They're not listening at all. And then I'll also spend 30 minutes on the phone call and I'll hear about their background and why they're upset, and I still don't know what they want me to do. What are they calling me, asking me to do? It's still not clear. And so by coming up with these solutions that we're asking people to implement and solve, I think is the key, because they've been researched and now we're being very specific at what we're asking our local governments to do. And so I appreciate this effort. I like to think that I'm a game changer. Obviously, I'm no longer young, but I do appreciate this group and do appreciate that you're in Columbus, and I look forward to hearing the suggestions. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kat Canella, and I am the communication coordinator for the Young Gamechangers program. I am also an alum of this program, class of 2017 in Milledgeville. And so this program, as Carrie was saying, truly is a leadership in action program, and it develops individuals to go beyond just understanding themselves better so they can help other people grow. It really forces them to go through the paces of doing the work, the hard work of creating change, of coming up with solutions. So before we get to their final recommendations to our community, I'd like to welcome State Representative Teddy Reese to the stage to give a few comments, who, as it happens, is also a past Young Game Changer. So, Representative Reese.
Good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good gets better, and better is your best. Welcome, Young Game Changers. Thank you. Give yourselves a round of applause. As Kat stated, I am a graduate of the 2014 class of Young Game Changers, which was in Dublin, Georgia. And for 13 years, Young Game Changers have been bringing young minds together from all across our state, descending upon a city with one goal, and that was to make that city better. And I have no doubt with the results that we have delivered in cities all across this state that you guys are prepared to do the same thing today. And I'm going to sit there on my seat, on the edge of my seat with bated breath, waiting on these results because I know they will be absolutely fantastic. For the leaders in the community that we see out here today, I see some developers, I see grant writers, I see people that provide resources for much needed areas of our community. Thank you for being here. This is going to be fantastic. I haven't seen a part of it yet, but I know the caliber of work that is done by this organization. I'm putting myself out here for y'all now. Make sure you produce for us. And I know this is going to be great for our city, for our region, not just for Columbus, but for West Central Georgia and East Alabama, because the goodness over here spills over the river just a little bit. So we're all very excited, and I just want to say thank you again to our elected leaders in the room. Tyson, thank you for your service. This is where leadership began for me. The next year, I was in Leadership Georgia, and now I have the honor of serving in the House of Representatives. So on behalf of House District 140 and its 60,000 residents, where we sit right here today along the Chattahoochee River, I want to welcome you back to Columbus for this presentation, and want to welcome our citizens to this arena as we listen to these great recommendations on how we all can move together as one city, Columbus, Georgia. Thank you so much.
Alrighty, a little bit of housekeeping notes as we get ready to move forward. Lights, please. Excellent. Okay, so as you heard, there are 4 challenge questions that our game changers focus their energies and attentions around. Okay, each group came up with 3 big ideas to address that specific challenge question. So you're going to see that coming forward. First, I'd like to invite, the other thing is please hold your applause until each group finishes, because you'll want to cheer after each idea. Just hold it, at least wait until that group finishes and we move on to the next challenge question. So with that, if I could please welcome group Communicate, Connect, Columbus to the stage.
Hello, we are Communicate, Connect, Columbus, and we were tasked with answering the challenge question that was identified by the community. How can Columbus, Muskogee County help all residents feel like a valued part of the community where they know what's going on, can connect with others, and contribute to the decision-making process for our collective future? My name is Adrienne Hundley. I lead the service development and delivery for the company Art Pharmacy, and I had the honor of working with these 10, please stand, wave, hello, young professionals over the past 6 months to address this question. Anchored by 3 big ideas: Communicate Columbus, strengthening the Communication and Community Affairs Department; Connect Columbus, empowering the Columbus community through dynamic engagement; and Experience Columbus 360, revolutionizing community engagement and education. We lay out a plan for this city to be on a transformative path towards a more connected, engaged, and prosperous future. Each idea represents a different part of building a community and emphasizes the importance of working together, communicating openly, and growing together. All of these things show that Columbus can be very committed to making the city a place where everyone's voice is heard, ideas prosper, and community bonds are stronger. So in order to incorporate that community voice and ensure that our ideas align with the city's vision and its capacity, we had buy-in from the involved departments and met with representatives from both the city government and others in the community. And you will hear reference in our ideas to the importance of community assessment and asset mapping that we have built into these ideas, designed to pull even more community voice into these initiatives. From here, I'll turn it over to my team. Cody.
Good afternoon. So I am Cody Thigpen. I am the Assistant City Manager for the City of Woodstock, Georgia. And our first idea is to strengthen the Columbus Consolidated Government Communication and Community Affairs Department. So our first idea is to start with the local government itself and to really help the Communications Department for Columbus-Muskogee County in order to fill its own goals and objectives. They're a new department, and we want to build on their enthusiasm and assist them in getting the tools and resources they need to be successful. We want the consolidated government to understand how a funded and supported communications department impacts all departments. And it's important for them, the communications department, to hear the goals and priorities from all the departments throughout the city so that they know how to support those departments and the city as a whole. So we think a strategic retreat attended by elected officials and key staff is a great way to build that foundation. It's an opportunity for leadership to hear the needs of each other and to also hear the goals and visions of the city from staff and elected officials. Here we have a picture. These are ones that I supply. This is from a city council retreat we held for the city of Woodstock. We actually held it in the city of Chattanooga, but that is all of our elected officials and key staff. We actually brought about 25 total people to the retreat. So those are pictures there of people brainstorming and collaborating together. But I think it's a really great way for everyone to hear the same message at the same time and to all be on the same page. It's also a great opportunity for the communications department to not only hear those citywide initiatives, but also for them to plant some seeds with city management and elected officials in regard to future need and strategic growth for the department. The department is going to need to build a team and have resources allocated to be able to carry out any of our recommendations. And we know that doesn't happen overnight. In reviewing organizational charts of similarly sized cities, they have much more robust communication departments, and that takes time to build. But for a city like Columbus, a 5 to 10 year plan can be very realistic to build out a team and plan to service the city and communicate with the citizens in the way that they deserve. And we don't propose that all falls on the city. The city is so fortunate to have the wonderful resource of Columbus State University, who has stepped up as a willing and able partner, and they want to help. So now I'll hand it over to Dr. Tiffany McBride to talk about the ways that Columbus State University stands ready to partner with city communications staff to assist in making all of these recommendations a reality.
Thank you so much, Cody. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Tiffany McBride, as Cody stated, and I am an assistant professor in the Department of Communication at Columbus State University. As I get started with talking about how we will establish our relationship, I do want to shout out that our department chair for the Department of Communication is here today, Dr. Dana Gibson, if you would wave. And we are very fortunate that in the back, in my rear, is our newest president, Dr. Stuart Rayfield, who has come here today. I would just like to highlight that currently Columbus State University is already a partner within the city in various ways and has been able to infiltrate the community through the Georgia Film Academy, as well as the MPACE Center, which stands for Nonprofit Organization and Civic Engagement. Through those partnerships, Columbus State University has already partnered and had a buy-in with our partnerships with the city government. Due to its proximity to Columbus State University, the Columbus Consolidated Government would be able to utilize the university's resources, our students, to close disparity gaps in the new communication department. We propose that we would have more collaborative strategies, such as customized coursework and apprenticeship pipelines that can help achieve the goals of the Columbus Consolidated Government by having human capital and other resources. In essence, we propose to establish a partnership with Columbus State University to create a pipeline of interns from our public relations track, integrated media, who already works with our CCGTV program, and have students, faculty, and staff help develop a communication strategy for our newly created Department of Communication through the city government, as part of a course for current students to work on a semester-long project to help in these efforts. We would like to also connect in a way that would help students and the city government create a pipeline for careers. In essence, having the Communication Department Advisory Board, which encompasses faculty members and key leaders from the community, the initial talks that we had with this group have already shown the department to be open and willing to creating this partnership. As you can see from the slides there, this is our current radio station, and we're now even closely located to the city government being in one Arsenal place. A more detailed explanation of this partnership and even an implementation plan and a sample internship guideline is available in the final report. I'll now turn it over to my colleague. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Gabrielle Nelson, a councilwoman in the city of Port Wentworth, Georgia, which is right outside of Savannah. I'm also the computer services manager for Chatham County local government. Connect Columbus is centered around empowerment. We want to empower Columbus and the entire community through dynamic engagement. This idea is intended to build off of the initiatives set forth in the ideas just mentioned, with emphasis on the community affairs aspect of the communications and community affairs departments. And to be successful, we must build capacity to build strategic partnerships within the community and create those partnerships. We have to. First idea we thought of was identifying the assets and the gaps that lay the engagement plans through participatory processes. We propose utilizing programs like the National Community Survey, where we can get a data-driven sense of what type of community needs are out there, and not just what we think. We need to go off of data. 2, we'd also like to increase capacity to make meaningful connections. The Community Engagement Manager will develop a comprehensive community engagement strategic plan that identifies partnerships and opportunities for increased engagement and outreach. And last but not least, we want to implement the vision outlined in the Community Engagement Plan and produce city-led events to fill any gaps, as aforementioned, between the events produced by community groups. This is an opportunity for the city to take some ownership on building community through engagement without overshadowing the work that is already being done by the neighborhood associations. And it may require some real true outreach. The city could also develop grant opportunities that support and uplift a variety of strategic support and partnerships in ensuring connection for all communities in Columbus. The expected outcomes for this idea is to use data-driven approaches to support community needs and eliminate the perception that government is not a part of the community, but rather a necessary partner who should serve as a catalyst to grow connections and programming. And on to my next colleague, Ms. Courtney.
Thank you, Gabby. And I'm here. My name is Courtney Wilson, and I have the incredible honor of serving as the director of the William B. Turner Center for Servant Leadership at Columbus State University. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about our big idea number 3, which we have taglined and called Experience Columbus 360, which is essentially an engagement strategy intended to highlight all aspects of living in Columbus, Georgia. This initiative really promotes active citizenship as well as personal development by providing opportunities for experiential learning across multiple fields. Experience Columbus 360 is a series of immersive programs spanning education, politics, the arts, entrepreneurship, and more, all in collaboration with already existing local entities. The purpose of Experience Columbus 360 is to foster a culture of lifelong learning to ensure access for all residents in our community. This initiative has a very innovative strategy that is intended to utilize our culture to strengthen who we already are and unite our community, thereby nurturing our resilience and our prosperity. In the short term, some things that we know that we could do right away would be, like Gabby mentioned, that needs assessment that would allow us to collect the data that would help inform some of the decisions made in the future. We also think that it would be a great idea to ensure that young voices are heard, and that young residents are considered as a part of a vital part of this process to reinstitute the Youth Advisory Council and reinvigorate that, which has not been able to get back up and running over the last few years. In the midterm, in the short medium term, we think that implementing a Citizens Academy would allow for some civic education, which we know is important for our citizens to understand how local city government works, and would be open to all citizens aged 18 and up. And it's our hope that by building and encouraging camaraderie through things like a Citizens Academy, that we could strengthen our community and foster more of a collaborative spirit throughout. And so another thing that we'd like to offer as a medium term option would be implementing what we call City Council on Tour. We think it could be really effective to reach citizens where they are and to make people feel included by going to spaces where they feel comfortable. So recreation centers in local neighborhoods, high schools, and helping students and those folks that maybe have never been to City Council chambers or don't feel comfortable or welcome there, taking City Council to them in those different respective places. Long term, we think that neighborhood planning units would be a great idea. And just recently, the Columbus Consolidated Government and Zoe Hightower in her area, Columbus Connections, hired 4 full-time employees called neighborhood navigators, which we're really excited about. And those individuals were hired to work to address community needs and to work more closely with local stakeholders. Our group would just like to recommend to continue to develop that team of neighborhood navigators to include 1 per council district, so that we can ensure equitable representation in that process. And we encourage that those then forming the NPUs, which our colleague Kelsey will talk about later in another group's presentation. But those NPUs have been very successful in other communities, and we think that we could have a lot of success if we see them here. You can see a couple of those examples on our screen. So we believe that these 3 big ideas will inspire new and prosperous experiences in Columbus, and we look forward to seeing them implemented in years to come.
At this point in time, I'd like to open the floor up to questions from our audience.
Raise your hand and I will come to you with a microphone. If you have any questions.
Kat right here in the front.
So I noticed there's a lot of focus on people, and you compared the org chart from Savannah to Columbus. Was there a comparison of the communication materials? Are they seeing newsletters that we're not doing? Are they accessing other social media videos that we're not doing? Like, is there a gap analysis between the materials or communication methods that other communities are providing that we're not doing?
That is a level of detail that part of the strategic community communications plan would be tasked to go into, because just based on the size and the newness of the Communications and Community Affairs Department, the mission and the goals of the department have been laid out, but we were not able to go much deeper than that. But that first step of the assessment, and I don't know if you want to talk more to that.
I was just going to add to that, it was more sort of assessment of the human capital as compared to the materials. You can obviously see from our current city government Facebook page that we don't have a presence on Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, things of that nature. And if you look at the comparison to the organizational chart from Savannah, they have a specialized department for public relations, strategic communication, and right now our communication department comprises of CCGTV, our website, and our newest Department of Communications director, as compared to having an entire team. So the details of the materials were not necessarily assessed, but more so of who is actually on the team.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Who else has a question for this group?
I was Kat from the back.
Okay, here I come.
She's got her running shoes on, ready to go.
Thank you. You might have answered this question already, but what type of plans that they had in place for the area out here with zip code 31903? I'm noticing that's like kind of one of the most impoverished zip codes out here. I didn't know if they had any type of plans or things that they had in motion to kind of get things in place. I'm in the real estate field, and I drove around, I see empty, vacant houses, a lot of issues going on. Like, I didn't know if there was something that they had specifically planned for that area to make change to Columbus.
There's a whole group, I think the last group's group 4, is going to be addressing that specific question. Hey!
Yeah. Be patient. We have some big ideas for that area of town, for sure. Okay. Who else? All right, well, thank you so much. All righty, so our next group that I would like to welcome to the stage is group Silicon River.
Hello everyone. I'm Chelsea Bohannon from Decatur. First and foremost, thank you so much for welcoming us to your community. It's been so wonderful to meet everyone who has been so willing to talk about the situations here and how to make things better. I am the Director of Internal and Corporate Communications for And More, a company based in Atlanta. I'm so proud to introduce the Silicon River Group and our recommendations. Columbus, Georgia has a history of supporting big ideas, safely securing workers' money, financial protection when medical situations occur, a cure-all medicinal drink, damming the Chattahoochee River to power mills, and later blowing them up to encourage recreation. The region is now emerging as a tech destination, with the U.S. Army Robotics Requirement Division at Fort Moore, a new focus on the intersection of business and technology at Columbus State University, 2 top 100 engineering schools within 100 miles, and semiconductor manufacturing opportunities that could impact this region for generations. These tech resources, combined with entrepreneurs ready to invest in the next great idea, is reminiscent of a community some 2,500 miles to the west, Silicon Valley. This group's name, Silicon River, evokes that community and the asset that so defines this community, the Chattahoochee River. Our question: how can Columbus-Muskogee County leverage our existing assets in order to develop innovative approaches that inspire local entrepreneurship and attract investment from diverse types of industry that fit our community? The Silicon River team shown here, and I'll ask them to stand. Representing business, government, and education, brought experience in economic development, entrepreneurship, tech, real estate, and more to tackle the big question. Overall, we came to the conclusion that collectively, Columbus has the assets for a thriving business community. With updated strategic plans, it has the potential to attract investment that will create major change in this community. We outline our suggestions for that strategic plan in 3 big ideas: the River Valley JDA, a regional workforce coalition, and the Silicon River Fund. At this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Ernest Johnson to tell you about the River Valley JDA.
Thank you, Chelsea. My name is Ernest Johnson. I am with Georgia Power. It hurt my heart when we dimmed the lights, because we at Georgia Power love lights being on. But I'll let it slide. To lead off, our main goal that we have is to improve the redirection and a rebranding of the current Joint Development Authority in Columbus-Muskogee into a more tangible and proactive JDA. The emphasis is definitely on proactive. This restructure can create prosperity throughout the region. The collective proactivity can look like a mega site investment, a speculative building investment, or infrastructure. And I'll definitely explain those things in future slides of why those things are important and why they matter. When it comes to retooling the current economic development and why it is needed, the current JDA, called the Valley Partnership, functions more as a marketing joint development authority. Additionally, there is currently a vacancy in the department when it comes to the Director of Economic Development at the Chamber. So with this, we see a lack of collaboration that we want to propose hiring this position and its staff and the restructure of the JDA. Broken down into short-term, mid-term, long-term. Short-term would be developing a cohesive map of business development, resources, and assessments. Mid-term would be hiring that position. Third term would be the JDA restructure and rebranding. With that first step, projects are very important, and prospective industries are very time sensitive. So site and building data need to be ready and at its best. So we propose a development of a cohesive map that hits on the various targets that would keep the data up to date and also cultivate community among partnering organizations. Second step is filling that position of economic development director, and also a team that is dedicated to helping the chamber, because they oversee the operations day to day at the chamber, and they're contracted to be in charge of the JDA, and they also support other nonprofit organizations. So with that current vacancy, there's a greater burden placed on everyone. So we would like to maximize efficiency. Now about that main goal of the JDA. This is an outline of the potential outcomes that can happen. So a mega site is very important. By site, I mean a piece of property land that is open that a potential company can come and bring their facility there. Mega site can be 1,000 acres or more, 500 acres or more. It depends on how you want to use those semantics. Speculative building is quite similar, except for it's a building that is built and constructed without a company in mind at the moment, but then a company can come and say, oh, there's a building here in Columbus, in Muskogee, in this region, let's come here to this building. So that's why those two things are awesome. And of course, a railroad, a freight railroad to bring in goods is very key and can bring in a lot of diverse industries. Because if a site is rail served, that makes it even more sexy. We use that a lot in economic development. Transportation infrastructure is also key as well. That is self-explanatory. These are two options of a mega site that we found. They're both on the southern border of Harris County, northern border of Muskogee County, have great highway access. There need to be site mitigation when it comes to floodplains, wetlands, potential streams. But we see these as great potential for mega sites. And then lastly, there are budgeting issues that we have solutions for that are in the packet, in the report, that we would love you to read further into. And this leads to diverse businesses. So now let's talk about attracting people and having the workforce ready for economic development growth. And that leads to Marnie Brown.
Happy Thursday. My name is Marnie Brown. I serve as Vice President of Data Platforms and Solutions at BlackRock. I live in Smyrna, Georgia. Happy to be here today. How are the children doing? The United Way describes this as the most important indicator of a community's well-being. This is largely linked to economic mobility, the ability of an individual or family to improve their financial status, which can have a multi-generational and positive impact on the overall well-being of the child, family, and community. An educated workforce is better equipped to embrace technological advancement and has the ability to increase the earning potential of families for generations, enhancing economic and social mobility, and also their quality of life. Our next idea focuses on just that. First, we recommend creating a regional education workforce coalition to create a skilled and sustainable workforce pipeline. We propose creating an independent organization that identifies current educational resources as well as opportunities and needs across the region to create and retain living wage jobs. It would connect untapped workforce members with the education and training to qualify for high-need jobs by removing those attainment barriers and creating a culture of career exploration and aspiration from an early age. In the future, we see funding to secure a permanent physical location for this org and includes shared classrooms, staff, community space, and more. Next, guarantee free college and technical credentials for Muskogee County graduates to public institutions in this region with the expectation that they remain in Columbus for 3 to 5 years. We propose creating a fund to generate reserves for these educational investments. Imagine being able to provide certifications for computer programming or healthcare technicians for free. This is investing not only in the education for today, but for the future. As you can see here on this slide, the cost of tuition is rising. We know that for sure. But Columbus can spur the workforce development and educational attainment quickly by guaranteeing free education for qualified Muskogee County residents. And then finally, we know we have to focus on affordable housing for current and future residents. It's not enough to just have a productive workforce if we don't have the means to keep the talent here. So first, we can leverage existing funds like the HUD Community Development Block Grant programs and local developers to build affordable housing units or renovate existing structures in mixed-use neighborhoods. Also, the Columbus Housing Authority should track and enforce locally mandated affordable units in order to preserve existing units and effectively create new ones. The expansion of the Moving to Work program and working with property owners to reduce income requirements for renters to a realistic figure will provide more flexibility of how federal funds are used and help increase housing choices for residents and families. A realistic figure that takes into account their housing voucher would demonstrate a true public and private partnership that's dedicated to equity and access, not exclusion. Columbus must collaborate and demonstrate radical and rapid investment in community. This means investing in the workforce of today and the next generation. Going back to the children, we want the children, the future workforce of this community, to be ready to lead and to thrive and to work. Now I'll pass it to my colleague, Richard Taylor, with our final idea.
Thank you so much, Marini. My name is Richard Taylor. I'm the founder and managing partner of ARC Capital Partners, a real estate development firm based in Atlanta. And for our third big idea, we recommend the creation of a venture capital fund with a local residency requirement which mirrors Chattanooga's extremely successful venture, the Brickyard. First one. Okay. The intention of this fund is to build a thriving startup environment right here in Columbus, Georgia. Currently, Columbus has a stagnating population growth rate, which is heavily weighted towards the millennial cohort. We see the major tailwinds of this exodus as a lack of a diverse mix of amenities and activities attractive to young people and not enough support to drive middle and upper middle class jobs. Our recommendation is to create a venture capital fund with a local residency requirement funded by key community stakeholders. Further, we propose repurposing an existing structure to provide a live-in option for entrepreneurs. The product of this fund should drive growth among a cohort which tends to be younger, create a boom of middle and high wage growth jobs, and create a trickle-down effect as demand grows for a social scene similar to other large cities. In the short term, you'll need to create the fund structure and raise capital. In the medium term, you'll begin making investments and complete the construction of the business center. And over the long term, you'll raise Fund 2 and establish an annual conference on par with those in Silicon Valley. In raising Fund 1, you'll need to identify investors, select an experienced management team, and find a site for the live-in structure. We expect companies backed by this fund to mirror historical employment trends where the growth rate of companies backed by venture capital funds exceeded those in the private sector by 7% annually. In ramping operations, we begin making initial investments. We complete the live-in structure. And as you can see, despite the increasing size of funding rounds, in the most recent year, the bottom decile rounds were well below $1 million, illustrating that small funds can be extremely impactful. And finally, this is the optimal time to raise Fund 2 as a thriving ecosystem is cemented and the city benefits from an influx of young entrepreneurs. Finally, this is the chance to start an annual conference to cement Columbus's place as a major contender in the tech space. As you can see, just 2.6% of jobs in Georgia are venture-backed, which pales in comparison to other states, pointing the significant white space that exists where Columbus can dominate. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Questions? Yes.
Yes.
For the VC fund, I guess how many investments do you see them making a year to have a diverse portfolio for the VC?
Yeah, so I would anticipate a 10-year fund life with a 5-year investment period and a 5-year harvest period. For Fund 1, I wouldn't want to overstretch the management team, so I would recommend if they're smaller investments, the Brickyard tends to average $400,000 per investment, 10 to 20 investments total. That would be made typically in the first 3 to 4 years, and so you would hopefully be cash flowing by the time you're looking at raising Fund 2, returning funds to investors.
So you're saying Columbus, the venture capital group in Columbus would make 10 to 20 investments per year?
Total. 10 to 20 investments total over the life of the fund. So you would expect that per fund.
Okay. What other questions do you have?
So I know all 4 teams probably worked independently. I've been very inspired by both of them, and I'm thinking about the connections between the two. How we can communicate this great idea going forward. And I'll also put in a plug while I'm here, since I'm from Columbus State, and say, hey, everybody come to the Columbus Biz Pitch Competition, November 9th, 5 p.m., Serve Columbus. Columbus State partners on that. It's going to be awesome.
All right.
Who else? That's another hand over here. Sadie's got you. She's coming.
Hey, I was just wondering if y'all had any recommendations for how K-12 education. I heard the piece about, like it was mentioned briefly about Columbus State using, dipping into the K-12 as a potential source for the workforce. Do you have any specific recommendations that K-12 can help to make sure that we have students that we can produce to be able to accept those scholarships and financial aid to fill those tech needs?
I feel like we may have planted y'all something in the audience today, because that question lends itself to the next group that will be addressing.
Oh, hey, group 3.
Group 4. It's coming. Okay? What else? Yes.
So obviously technology is important for economic growth, and that's interesting to hear about these funds, but economic disparity is also a considerable issue here in town. So how would a program like the one you're suggesting address those issues?
I would have refer to group 4. But for our final presentation, a lot of these last couple questions you're going
adage that says health is wealth, but for some folks, before they can actually make it to health, they must heal, H-E-A-L. So I want to know, how are you incorporating a multidisciplinary team approach to look at improving people's mental health within that social determinants of health disparity?
Well, I'm not sure that was within the context of this particular challenge question. So each group, they were focusing their attention on answering the specific question that was asked of them. And I don't know that, because this one was very specifically economic development and objective.
Yeah, so let me specify a little bit more. So before people can make it to working, stable jobs, sometimes their mental health may not be stable. So are there places or programs or initiatives that can look at people's mental health state of mind? It's wonderful to have economic growth, but if we don't have consistency, sometimes that doesn't drive stability. So consistency drives stability. So are there any type of mental health initiatives or thoughts to support people in, understanding how to work, coaching them, mentorship, once they make it to that amazing plan that you have, because it's a wonderful plan.
Oh no. Group 3 is coming. They're motioning to me that they have something for you coming.
Yeah. Any additional questions related to the fund or anything?
Great. Thank you so much. And now I would like to welcome Group Fountain of Youth.
Hey, good afternoon. I am Dr. Jessica Van Valkenburg, an assistant professor of middle grades education at Columbus State University. I currently reside in Hamilton, Georgia. And our group, the Fountain of Youth, was tasked to bring and retain young professionals to the Columbus and Muskogee County area. Our group is comprised of 10 Gamechangers, 5 from the Columbus area and 5 from other areas of the state. And I would like to recognize the rest of our group now. Raise your hand, stand. Yay! All right, so the challenge question we were tasked with, let me go back. It was on the first slide, is how can Columbus engage and retain talent under the age of 40 so they can plant long-term roots in Columbus? As we look at this, we found that there was a problem because while Metro Atlanta is actually expected to grow substantially in the next 25 or so years, the Columbus population is going to decline. And actually a report that just came out from the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, their annual fiscal year 23 report, shows that while this was a great year for the state of Georgia in terms of growth, Columbus is actually ranked last in terms of number of projects and investment dollars spent. So the importance of this, keeping young people in Columbus will drive growth and innovation, as we've heard throughout the afternoon. When choosing a city to plant roots in, young professionals typically look at city recreation. They look at the demographics of the city. They look at job opportunities and investments that are going on in the area. So to help retain talent, we are going to introduce 3 big ideas to you. Those are Columbus Made, Plant Your Roots, and Connect Columbus. So with that, I will turn the presentation over to Emily to talk more about our first idea.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emily Sullins, and I work in career services at North Georgia Technical College in Clarksville, Georgia. And I would like to speak with you about the professional community in Columbus. Millennials and other young professionals are looking for more out of their lives and more ways to be involved in their own professional development. As you can see from the bright young minds in this room alone, young professionals are seeking ways to be connected with their community and want to learn skills that will help them further their professional lives. A common thread that we saw when speaking with community members and other young game changers is the need for additional leadership development opportunities for young professionals as they begin their careers. With this in mind, our first big idea is to create Columbus Made, a 12-week leadership development program geared towards those aged 25 to 35 in the beginning stages of their careers. These participants are people of all backgrounds who are interested in learning more about leadership paths available to them within their home community. We did speak with community organizations, and there are current young professional and leadership groups housed within the Chamber of Commerce. But we believe that there is still a gap that exists for those in the early stages of their careers. Leadership Columbus has a lot of great programming and opportunities available to those who are already in established leadership positions, and the current young professional groups are great for networking and getting to know others in the community. However, the gap we saw was in true curriculum programming for those who are not currently in leadership roles, but who want to be. The idea is that through this initiative, Columbus can begin fostering a pipeline of young talent that will progress through each professional group to make the community a better place for all to live, work, and play. Columbus Made is an impactful program that can be implemented in a relatively short amount of time. Initial steps involve hiring a part-time director who can work to facilitate curriculum development and promotion of the leadership program. Additional steps include finalizing sponsorship and weekly presenters before marketing the program to Columbus young professionals. With quick startup, the first cohort could graduate from the program by 2025, and we would begin to see positive improvement in leadership opportunities for young talent in Columbus. Columbus Made was structured off of a successful entry-level leadership program in Nashville called the Nashville Emerging Leaders. Similar to the Nashville program, Columbus Made will be made up of 30 cohort members with 25 paid members, 1 scholarship member, and 4 sponsorship-backed members. Tuition for the program will be $650 each, and this will go towards funding a program director, materials, venue space, and food for each meeting. Meetings will be held once a week for 12 weeks, with the final meeting being a graduation celebration for cohort members. This is a program that should be able to be self-sufficient with tuition payments and corporate sponsorship packages. The highest program cost is for the salary of a program coordinator, with additional costs being food and venue space for meetings and program materials. So now that we've talked about the professional community, I would like to turn it over to Kiana to talk about the community at large.
Hello, I'm Kiana Swindler. I'm the communication manager for Grady Health Foundation, but I was born and raised here in Columbus, Georgia. The technical definition for community is a group of people living in the same area or a group of people that share a common characteristic. But as we know, community means so much more than that. It's the community we build in our professional spaces. It's the community we build at church. It's the community we build here right in this room. And we heard much about the professional community we hope to build through Columbus Made, but I want to tell you about Plant Your Roots, which is a recommendation to change community through the built environment. Columbus currently consists of various pockets throughout Uptown, Midtown, North Columbus. However, what we lack right now is significant residential options. There needs to be more in providing a centralized area for young talent to live, work, and play, a place where they truly belong. We heard this from talking to CSU students, young professionals, and even heads of organizations that there is simply not a place where young talent and their families feel like they can belong. Plant Your Roots offers a sense of belonging by identifying a community for development to craft a comprehensive revitalization strategy. And we have identified 3 areas with potential for other communities that are up and coming. We have Anderson Village, Mid-City Yards, and Liberty District. And as I stated, we're open to recommending other communities that I would talk about in the timeline. The timeline is broken into 3 different categories: our short-term, mid-term, and long-term. The short-term includes hiring a project manager and coming up with a plan for design and identifying communities, revisiting previously commissioned plans and working with city planners to identify feasibility. Most importantly, the medium-term goals involve the community stakeholders. These are our neighbors. They are the people who are in this room who know the communities best. Lastly, the long-term goals will begin to solicit bids for development and working to tackle rezoning laws that will fit with the goal of this community. The budget is a mix of income. The budget is a mixes of income and expenses, with the most significant expenses including developer incentives, city and state, and this project also includes income through various grants like HUD and CDBG. You can see a more detailed outline of this project in your booklet or online, and now I will turn it over to Becca, who would talk about how we're going to bridge this community together.
Hello. Thank you, Kiana. I am Becca Covington, Operations Manager at Townsend Wealth Management right here in Columbus. I want to preface my remarks by saying I am so impressed and honored with how many citizens are here today. If anything that you hear today hits you as great or sounds good, please help us communicate that with your city leadership. That's our role as citizens. Please help us do that. So while researching what young professionals look for in a place to live, we read over and over again that people are looking for jobs with competitive salaries, affordable housing, and a sense of community. When speaking to professionals under 40, there seemed to be an idea that they could have high-paying jobs in Atlanta with high housing prices and all of the downsides to living in a city. Or they could live in Columbus, a cool community where they will make less money, but they can be meaningfully involved and eventually might be able to afford a home. We wanted to ask, what if they could have both? We suggest that Columbus revisits the idea of a high-speed passenger rail from Columbus to Atlanta. This rail would allow young professionals to work in Atlanta, but live, play, and pay their taxes in Columbus. As jobs become easier to do remotely, and Columbus 2025 launches its new Move to Meaningful campaign to advertise our city as a destination to which young professionals who have careers that allow them to work from home should move, Columbus is already thinking of ways to attract young talent. However, we are forfeiting a large population of people who have to go into the office 2 to 3 times per week because there's not a convenient way to get to Atlanta. As we all know, right now, the only ways to travel from Columbus to Atlanta are by Groom, driving yourself, or taking a flight from the Columbus airport. Realistically, young professionals who want to live in Columbus would have to drive themselves back and forth, wasting money, energy, and 4 more hours a day in the car. Those are 4 non-productive hours. High-speed rails are coming to Georgia. This is a map of Amtrak's proposed routes through Georgia. Columbus isn't on it. If we're not in the conversation, Columbus will be left behind. We know that building a high-speed rail is a big move. The game-changing nature of a high-speed rail necessitates that we rethink what commuting in Columbus could look like. The professionals it would attract won't have your traditional 9-to-5 office employee jobs. I know that's different and maybe even a little difficult for some of you to imagine, but Columbus has not been announcing large numbers of jobs that would bring young people to town for their careers. We've got to reimagine some things. We are not suggesting that we break ground tomorrow. We're suggesting that Columbus make sure that nobody in the state of Georgia mentions a high-speed rail without mentioning Columbus. And there's good news on that front. We're already partway there. In the early 2010s, Columbus commissioned a feasibility study. The Federal Railroad Administration finds a rail line feasible if it has an operation ratio of above 1. Our study found that our line, which was projected to be completed in 2030, rated a 1.21. That ratio increased every decade after that. I highly recommend that you read the feasibility study. It's available on the city's website. So when considering if a high-speed passenger rail is still something Columbus ought to pursue, we asked ourselves whether or not high-speed transportation has become less feasible in the last 20 years, and whether or not Columbus has become a more desirable community in the last 2 decades. We believe that, with a better understanding of and concern for the environment, a post-COVID work environment, and the projected growth of Atlanta, high-speed rail is in fact more feasible than it was in 2014. We also think that Columbus is an amazing community. You have and will continue to hear about some of the work that we need to do to build ourselves into a destination that attracts young professionals from near and far. But Columbus has a lot to offer and has increased its visibility and desirability over the past 20 years. We believe that the rail is still feasible, especially with the opening of a private high-speed rail in Florida that connects Miami and Orlando. High-speed rail is not going away. Growing up in Columbus, I always heard what an incredible missed opportunity it was that Columbus turned down its chance to be on 185. Let's not make that mistake again. We need to be part of this conversation. Juan, do you want to close this out for us?
Thank you, Becca. My name is Juan Mejia. I am from Atlanta. I'm the principal of JCM Ventures. We've heard a lot of stuff. We have one more group to hear from us, but this can't happen with just us speaking. We need the public sector and the private sector to come together, share those ideas, bring their networks into the conversation. There are three things that make communities thrive, especially for young talent, and it's attractive jobs, housing, and a sense of being proud to be Columbus made. Columbus has been a transformative community before. It started as a millwork town and has continually transformed and reinvented itself because of the past and current game changers we have. There's nothing stopping us now from transforming to the next destination for young talent, but we need you guys in the room. We are watching from our communities and look forward to being part of that journey with you guys. And I think questions are next.
Lady Day in the back. So I hear the work, the live, but I think I missed the play part. So I think you guys said under your presentation with the planting your roots, and you have the Liberty District. Are you looking to have specific industries that you bring in that focus on like entertainment and all of that? Because I hear that a lot. There's not a whole lot to do.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of places to live.
Exactly. And what we specifically hope for is in the Liberty District to make the Liberty Theater the hub. As we know, young professionals, young talent love arts. They love the culture. So what we're proposing, which you can find in our detailed booklet, is that building this community up, we will really make this arts community more vibrant to bring in, whether that's physical art, musical, anything like that. So yes, we're hoping that the districts do have a little bit of play as well.
Right here, Ms. Nate.
Thank you. I heard a lot of recommendations about some filling gaps in programs around leadership development and the living situation. And I'm curious about, has there been consideration for, rather than adding positions and new programs, approaching current stakeholders who are on one end of that spectrum and seeing what opportunities exist for them to pivot or expand their focus to help fill the gap that you've identified?
I think we would be open to that. So whether it is taking the current programs and bolstering them to really give that to our early professionals, that would be great, or we can do a completely separate program. But what we notice in the community is the people in our age range, they are in entry-level or just above entry-level jobs, and they're having a really hard time getting above that. There's no room for them to grow. There's nowhere to teach them, to mentor them, to get them to those spaces that they need to be in. And so what we really want to do is fix that overall. There have to be attractive jobs, and we heard about it from the other one. We need more mid-level and upper mid-level jobs, and without the people to fill those, so that's kind of our goal, is to create that programming to get those people ready to take on those jobs. But then we also need help from the community. Those jobs have to be here. We can't have an entry-level workforce, so we have to bolster it and get the leadership up to par, whether that's through current ventures or our suggestion. We're open to either one of those.
My question is, me personally, I have a lot of family members that actually commute by rail from Delaware to Philadelphia, New York, Virginia, all the way into Washington. they prefer those areas due to the fact that the cost of living is much cheaper. Have you all did a study just to see maybe how many people that communicate back will go back and forth, commute back and forth through the rail system to say how many of those people actually live outside of those big populated areas that they're traveling into by rail?
So are you talking about other areas that have high-speed rails? We have not done the research to figure out the exact percentages, but the fact that they are feasible high-speed passenger rails that do attract people to do that is a sign that it exists. So we think that, just polling our group, we have one person who would love to stay in Columbus, but her job went back to working 3 times a week. So she had to leave Columbus to move to Atlanta. And that's the kind of loss that we want to prevent. My brother wants to move to Columbus, but he doesn't want to make the drive twice a week. So that's 2 people. So.
I also do want to remind you all that our Gamechangers were tasked with planting seeds, right? It's going to be up to the community to take these ideas, the very basics, the beginnings of blueprints, and the community is going to have to flesh that out. The community will have to do any sort of further needs assessments to determine, is this feasible for our community? Are these ideas going to be implementable in the way that we envision they will be? Question to that?
Yes, well, I could add to that answer. There are research teams with the state of Georgia and also Georgia Power that can get that information for you. There's software that can tell you the influx and outflux by car, and I'm sure it also has that by rail as well. We can get that for you if you would like that. I can get you my card, and anyone else that wants that information, that can be done.
I want that information.
Speaking of the research team at the state of Georgia, hi, I'm Leslie Russell. You're going to be hearing from me soon. You asked about measuring commuters out of a certain demographic area and what means of transportation they take. That information is currently available on the U.S. Census website, and I would be more than happy to provide that to you.
What other questions do we have for this group, if I were to know you? Yes, sir.
I was I was part of group 3, and the question on play part of the entertainment, and I think, as we were talking about the Liberty District and the arts, Columbus is so blessed with the arts that we currently have here. We just had Rush South event, which was a nationwide level of concert series here. Those are the things that we will continue to do, I think, and hopefully have the support of the community behind it. But as far as the spaces, offering those incentive packages to developers like the TAD program, historic or other tax incentives to go in and do these development projects to create play are very important. They help make the math work. They help make the bank happy. And so we were really fortunate to have ULI come speak to our group as one of our sessions here. And each one of us got to go play developer, city community builder. And I think it shed a very bright light into the challenges that it takes to create these spaces. I'm a developer here. My partner and I, Chris Woodruff here, are excited to have Highside Development come to Columbus, or Highside Market come to Columbus, and but we want to continue to do those fun things. So it's a partnership with all. So we hope to continue to build on that play here and make Columbus more fun.
All right.
I'm going to add one more note on that.
In the back.
Sharika Days here playing about playing. Yes, I'm actually headed to Savannah tomorrow for a wedding, but why can Columbus not be the next Savannah, the next Nashville? Why does every bachelorette party, wedding have to be there? I always say, when I invite my friends from Atlanta, come to Columbus for a weekend. You'll fall in love. What's easier than getting your crew in Buckhead, Midtown, hop on the train, come to Atlanta for the weekend, check out Broadway, check out what's going on downtown Columbus State, the arts. We've always got something going on with Springer. So that's my first play, to get them into town to play, and then once they fall in love, expand upon that even more.
Just to add to the leadership programs, I think there was a question about the current leadership programs that we have and how we could bolster it. I think with the Columbus Made proposal, I think that was the name of the proposal. Currently, right now, Leadership Columbus average tuition is a little over $1,500. So if you think about an entry-level professional, young professional, if they're not being sponsored by their organization or company, they can't afford to be a part of those leadership programs. So having something that's half the price or even sponsored or have a tuition, but they can pay on and do whatever, I think that would be the middle ground.
All right, any parting thoughts for this group? Thank you so much. And finally, I would like to invite Group South Columbus Soul to the stage. And I neglected to do this earlier. If you are a Gamechangers alum, can you just like wave your hand? Just want to kind of see how many of us are in here.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Erica Walker, and I am from the city of Catala, Georgia. I am the Director of Tocqueville and Legacy Giving at United Way of the Chattahoochee Valley. We are South Columbus Soul. And before we begin, I'd like to ask the team to stand and be recognized. For the last 6 months, 6 long months, we've worked together to address our challenge question. Something happened to the question. There it goes. Okay. According to 2020 U.S. Census data, 20% of people in Muskogee County live in poverty, and our most impoverished areas are centered in South Columbus. In light of this, how can we effectively address income disparity in South Columbus and increase economic mobility in our community? Bear with me. All right. For decades, poverty has been seen, felt, and talked about in the South Columbus area. In our area, Muskogee County, there's a significant racial disparity in poverty, with approximately 10% of poverty in predominantly white neighborhoods in comparison to the almost 34% of poverty in predominantly black neighborhoods. This being a majority of South Columbus, the 31903 area code. Columbus, this is your community, and I want you to be open to what we talk about today. So I invite you to learn about our 3 big game changers ideas, and I invite Will Newton to present the first one.
Thanks, Erica, for that great introduction. As she mentioned, my name is Will Newton. I'm from the city of Norcross, where I'm the city's business development manager. So first off, I want to kind of dive into the overall theme of what the Cyber Soul initiative is about. The Cyber Soul is aiming to create South Columbus and the region as a digital city of the future by incorporating the latest and greatest in technology and broadband access in order to expand and enable educational pathways, tech literacy, and overall accessibility. This initiative will provide tech-focused workforce and educational opportunities, enabling the community to have greater economic mobility. So I want to first address where Columbus is at and some of the good strides they've been making, look at the gaps, and then get into our 4 recommendations. So the city of Columbus is already doing a good job with providing public access to broadband at all of its public facilities, city hall, libraries, schools, things of those natures. And the county education system provides hotspots, Wi-Fi hotspots to students who need them to complete assignments. So there's great efforts being made on this behalf, but as we all know, there are gaps. And I want to mention that availability is not synonymous with accessibility or the digital know-how to navigate that. So with this in mind, Columbus should be positioning itself to address the future needs of a STEM and tech-focused workforce. So this brings me to my 4 main recommendations for this idea. We want to first make Columbus a broadband-ready community, which is a designation you receive from the Department of Community Affairs. Secondly, we want to create a continuing effort of digital literacy and web safety education programs. We want to increase awareness of the Affordable Connectivity Program. We want to administer youth and young adult tech prep programs for job seekers. So these 4 recommendations can be broken into short, medium, and long-term goals. I'm not going to mention them all, but some of the short-term goals I'd like to point out are getting that broadband ready designation and launching a steering committee that's going to help pilot and shape these educational programs that we roll out over the years. Our medium-term goals include creating online job fairs and job posting boards that are specifically focused on South Columbus, whether that be increasing the exposure and the marketing in South Columbus to residents, or if that be specifically highlighting businesses and companies looking for employees in that area. We also want to increase the awareness and accessibility of locations for the Affordable Connectivity Program. Our long-term goals include just continuing those programs, but we also want to start an automatic enrollment for individuals who participate in a qualifying eligibility event. This can be things such as registering for SNAP, driver's license, things of those nature. So you probably want to know, how much is this going to cost? Well, for this big game-changing idea, the budget is relatively small. We expect about $40,000 per year to administer these programs, with a one-time fee of $10,000 to get a consultant to kind of launch that steering committee I mentioned. There are countless funding sources and other partnerships that this idea can benefit from. I'm not going to name them all. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of these organizations, but things like United Way, Department of Energy, Department of Community Affairs, your utility companies in the area, service providers, and all the other great nonprofits that have their impact here in South Columbus. So with that being said, I'm now going to hand it over to Kelsey to talk about the House of Soul initiative.
Hi everybody, my name is Kelsey Kruskell. I work as a research analyst for the Georgia Department of Economic Development. House of Soul is a neighborhood rejuvenation strategy that will prepare the community for economic development by demonstrating care and pride in South Columbus. Our strategy builds on existing resources such as the 2021 redevelopment plan, but it also expands on the city's 311 program as well as the Neighborhood Navigators program. Our proactive strategy begins with redesigning the city's building inspections and code enforcement website. Currently, users are navigated to MuniCode, a third-party website intended for government professionals, in order to access city codes and standards. We recommend promoting accessibility by creating a guide for the most common citations and how to avoid fines to be located on the city's website. A great example is on this next slide through the city of Suwanee. We also recommend introducing a chat box assistant to the 311 program where users can informally submit written requests for their recommendations to the city. Finally, we recommend that the city's code enforcement website be home to homeowner education materials, such as maintenance schedules, budgeting tools, and basic repair tutorials. Our second proactive strategy is expanding the code enforcement division altogether. These new staff will engage with citizens through the homeowner education program through quarterly in-person seminars that review the materials corresponding with each season. These new staff will also be responsible for issuing blight warnings to commercial and residential structures before a fine is issued. They will also connect qualifying home improvement projects to a revolving loan fund for financing opportunities for projects that improve the aesthetic of the entire neighborhood. Our final proactive strategy is introducing a blight tax. This will be imposed on commercial and residential structures that have already received blight warnings and have failed to bring their buildings up to code. Under our program, once the city declares a property as blighted, it will be reassessed and a higher millage rate or a millage rate multiplier will be applied to the new value, essentially overriding the tax freeze. However, we realize this is a steep price for homeowners in South Columbus to pay, so I want to stress that we do not recommend a blight tax be imposed on owner-occupied units. House of Soul is a neighborhood rejuvenation strategy that focuses on equitable, sustainable development. That's why the reactive arm of our plan begins with the creation of a neighborhood planning unit, or an NPU, like those described by our friends in Group 1. As a reminder, a neighborhood planning unit is a citizen-led volunteer organization that forms a line of communication with the city regarding their concerns and recommendations from their unique perspective. The first task of the South Columbus NPU will be to advise the city on short-term blight removal strategies, such as junk and trash removal, as well as pressure washing services. The NPU will also contribute to a blight removal task force, which will be a collaborative effort between the NPU, Neighborhood Navigators program through the city manager's office, the city, NGOs, and other city stakeholders. The Blight Removal Task Force first task will be mapping every parcel of land in Columbus and South Columbus in order to identify blight. This will contribute to a property database to be located on the city's code enforcement website as a first step in identifying long-term blight removal solutions. Not only will it serve to demonstrate progress to city stakeholders, but it will also allow for an accurate projection of revenues through implementing a blight tax. Our final reactive strategy is constructing a homeless navigation center in the vacant lot next to Mount Pleasant Baptist Church to serve the unhoused population in South Columbus. The center can collaborate with the church to provide essential needs and services to this unhoused population, as well as clean and safe shelter, which is so desperately needed. In order to save on costs and also to get the structure operational as quickly as possible, we recommend utilizing a high-tension fabric building like the one shown here, known as a sprung structure. Here is an example of the transformative power of a good neighborhood rejuvenation initiative in Macon, Georgia. Under our plan, residents in South Columbus have every opportunity to demonstrate care and pride in their community. They can learn about homeowner responsibility and city codes and standards through redesigning the city's code enforcement website. They have access to financing opportunities for qualifying home improvement projects through the revolving loan fund. Finally, they can participate in the neighborhood planning unit and communicate their unique ideas, perspectives, and recommendations through the city, as well as advising short and long-term blight removal strategies. We believe that our short-term goals can be achieved through collaboration in a matter of 6 months. Our medium-term goals can be achieved in 1 year, and our long-term goals may take 2 years or more. As you can see on this slide, our key action items have been bolded. Here's the budget that we've planned for the House of Soul initiative. Although blight tax legal consulting fees is listed as an expense, I want to stress that this is a revenue generating item that can help offset the cost of our House of Soul initiatives. And this is also listed here on our list of funding sources and partnerships. House of Soul will require collaboration from everybody on this page, and we really look forward to seeing how these initiatives come to fruition throughout the next couple of years. With that, I turn to my colleague Ashley Neely, who's going to talk about our third and final big idea.
So good afternoon. My name is Ashley Neely, and I'm from Columbus, Georgia, but I live in Atlanta. And I'm here to talk to you about our third big idea, soul support. So before I get into our big idea, we just want to give praise to the City of Columbus for all the opportunities they are making available to try to reduce poverty. We had the opportunity to meet with Circles of Columbus, which is a nonprofit organization that deploys an 18-week training program that allows participants to set goals to try to reduce poverty. We also want to give praise to the City of Columbus for the workforce development opportunities that they deploy, such as allowing participants to receive free CDL training to get their licenses. But we know, despite all the great opportunities that already are happening in Columbus, that we still have a poverty issue in South Columbus. And we also know there are evidence-based ways to reduce poverty that we can implement right here. With the expansion of the Earned Income Tax Credit that allowed families to get their advanced income tax just early, monthly, that reduced child poverty by 30%. So what does that tell us? That tells us that, putting cash directly in the hands of participants works. So if you're ready for a really big idea, we're recommending that the City of Columbus become the next city in Georgia to launch a guaranteed basic income program. And if you're not familiar with guaranteed basic income, it's a direct cash assistance with no strings attached. We're proposing that this be called South Columbus Soul, and if that logo looks familiar, please don't sue us for copyright infringement. That did come from We Do Amazing. But it's going to be called Securing Our Universal Livelihood. We're recommending that the City of Columbus give 50 participants $500 a month for the next 2 years during Pilot 1 or Phase 1 of the program. And then during Phase 2, we're recommending that that be expanded to 100 families receiving $500 a month. And we're not just stopping there. We also want to encourage participants to enroll in workforce development if they have the time. Because let's face it, they may be working more than one job already. And we will incentivize them by providing an additional subsidy with workforce development. So you might be wondering, how can we trust people to just give them money? What are they going to spend it on? Well, fortunately, we're not the first city to come up with this idea. We have over 7,000 data points from other cities across the US that have already implemented guaranteed basic income programs. And they spend it where you would expect, on transportation, housing, retail, grocery store. And I want to emphasize that these 7,000 data points are local spending. That's going to be local spending that is going to impact the city of Columbus, South Columbus, and the surrounding areas. We also want to encourage the city to take a public stance that it believes in its most vulnerable citizens by becoming the next city in Georgia to join Mayors for Guaranteed Income. So how do we get there? Of course, we have our short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals, but our immediate goal, we want to launch a steering committee. We want to determine which nonprofit is going to host this program. What does the public and private sector partnership look like with the nonprofit sector? And figure out what is the criteria that we want to launch for the people to enroll in the Guaranteed Basic Income program. And I know you're wondering about the price tag, but I want to emphasize that the cost of living in poverty is much more expensive. For the fund the phase 1, that will cost $600,000 for the 50 families, and during phase 2, that'll cost $600,000. Actually, no. Yes, $600,000. And altogether, to fund this program will cost $2.2 million. We also have a great possibility of funding sources, and that includes the Community Foundation. We've also seen other cities that have used the American Rescue Plan to pay for this, and we're hoping that we have some donors in the room too. And we have a variety of different partners that we've already named earlier today that will be willing to partner on this initiative with us. But before I leave, I want to leave you with the quote. And this is actually the cousin of Davisha Bradley, who's on our team, and this is from In Her Hands, which is a guaranteed basic income program that is actually in Southwest Georgia and Randolph County. Kayana is receiving $850 a month for the next 2 years. And through this program, she's been able to pay off loans, pay off debt, and she's on her way to financial freedom that'll have an impact for generations to come. So I want to thank you for listening to our third big idea, Soul Support. I'm going to turn it over to Erica Walker to close this out.
Uh-oh, they got a whole cord under this rug. Okay. In 20 minutes, we will announce ourselves as graduates of this program. And as eager as we are to do that, we don't just want to be a conversation for right now. We don't want to be a distant memory after we leave this stage. Earlier I said, Columbus, this is your community. Columbus, this is our community. Today, we challenge you to look through the lens of opportunity for this community. This is your chance to build up your own backyard, specifically focusing on the challenges of South Columbus. You're not just here because you care. You're more than just a citizen and a stakeholder in this community. You're an investor of impact. You have the ability to make big changes, just like the ones that we proposed. Thank you.
I know somebody has a question for this group. Raise your hand way high so I can see it in the dark. I know that.
So I heard the barrier of education and poverty. Did you guys consider people that are in the criminal system, that have been locked up and are trying to restart their lives, but struggle because either nobody wants to hire them and they kind of stay in that space? And so was that ever considered as a barrier with your questions?
I'll just say that when we first started this, our challenge was to address the question, and just to be completely transparent, we started off with about 10 big ideas that we then narrowed down to 3. And so really and truly, when we look at issues that we address, we have to consider whether it's low-hanging fruit, not to discredit that, that particular challenge exists. We have to think big. We have to challenge our city to address things that will eventually trickle down and impact challenges such as people who have a criminal record. So yes, it was something that we considered. It just didn't make it to our top 3.
And I will say, for one of the GBI programs that we looked at, it did focus on people that were recently incarcerated that were able to receive that funding. So it's something that the City of Columbus can determine what target population and what the criteria will be to enroll in that.
Thank you. What other questions? Sir, that.
Regarding the pipe tax, Are there other communities in Georgia that are charging the blight tax, or is that a change that would potentially need to change to, is that a legal change at the state that would need to happen before we can incorporate that at the local level?
So yeah, great question. I know for a fact that the city of Savannah has implemented a blight tax, and it's allowable by the state of Georgia Constitution. It's written into it. I believe it's called like a community development. It's framed as an incentive program through the Georgia Constitution. So I know at least one city that we looked at that has implemented a blight tax, and it is allowable at the state level.
And is that from the tax commissioner on the property or from the city government? Like who is collecting that tax? Do you remember that from Savannah?
The local government would be collecting that tax. It's an incentive program for property owners to reduce blight, is the way it's framed in the Georgia Constitution.
And there is a model ordinance, the Georgia Municipal Association,
yes,
for blight.
Did I see it over here? No, there's one right there.
Thank you. For the that monthly income, trying to remember the exact name for it, but is there going to be like a real thorough screening process for that? Because I know sometimes when you're giving like money that's going to be benefiting some families, there are some of the families that's going to try to take advantage of a good thing, and it becomes a problem for other people that actually need it. I didn't know if you guys had a proper screening process in place to make sure that did not happen.
We didn't define the criteria, but we know with any program there's always subject to some type of abuse, but for the majority of participants sorry, I keep hearing people echo. For the majority of the people that participated from what we've seen, that wasn't necessarily an issue, but that'll be up to whoever the steering committee is and what criteria they want to put on that. But I do want to emphasize that there is no strings attached, so we're not dictating what they spend it on, but just tracking what that is.
And it will be up to the city or whatever entity owns this initiative, if we decide to move forward with it, to set those criteria to make sure that whatever the threshold is, or whatever those guiding principles are for selecting that initial cohort of 50 families, that's going to be up to y'all to decide what that standard is. Yes, ma'am.
I love the idea you were talking about providing housing for homeless. One of the things that I know, there are several grants that are available to local cities, to provide housing for homeless people. But one of the issues is that a lot of cities are facing, they don't know who wants to oversee it. What if I missed that part, I'm so sorry. But again, who would oversee the homeless shelters? Or rather the homeless housing that's provided.
Right, so we talked with a couple of community organizations just to get feelers for how the Homeless Navigation Center would work. At this time, honestly, I don't have an answer for you, but we know that it will be a valuable, it could be a valuable resource for the unhoused population in South Columbus, especially given the lack of resources in that 31903 zip code. So that does have yet to be determined, but we remain optimistic.
And I wanted to add to that a little bit, something that was said earlier. We're planting seeds in our community, and so we hope that with what is said, any one organization would step up to take that charge. So we hope that it inspires somebody. I don't know who you're with, but you can talk to us afterwards.
I wanted to address the comment about the education disparity with poverty. To start off, nice to meet you all. Good to see you. I'm the State Director of Parent Services at Quality Care for Children. My name is Dr. Keon Barry. To address your question specifically with regards to education and poverty, if you look in communities where the education is not so good, the poverty is probably high, right? And so, like this group said, they did a phenomenal job of selecting the 3 top things that they could select. But I would say, it ultimately comes down to the leadership, right? Because I've been a part of this program. I'm the State Director of Parent Services. I can pull information on any child care center. And I've reached out several times about addressing this poverty concern that this community says that they're dedicated to, and I have yet to hear anything yet. And so it certainly starts with child care. And I wrote my dissertation about it. It specifically deals with low-income Black people, right? And that's the majority of the population that lives in that community. And so, as somebody who is in the early child care space, I am highly concerned. because there's not just a disparity with childcare, but those disparities are leading to direct impact, right, of the citizens. The citizens get recycled, right? They start young and then they grow and they become, productive and successful citizens. If you don't start at the earliest ages, right, then you're going to see tremendous, tremendous hurt that is happening. And I believe, and I would predict that is part of, the experience, and that has been part of the experience. We know that 90% of a child's brain is hardwired before the age of 5. So we're waiting to children get in kindergarten and 3rd grade instead of teaching them to read when they're young. But I'll leave it at that. Whole other challenge shit.
Hello, everyone. Outstanding jobs. Outstanding jobs. In 2014, when I went through this program, we were 4 years in, but we were still very close to the initial foundation of why Georgia Ford moved forward with Young Game Changers. And that was to take the young minds into communities with the limited resources that we had available and to present big ideas, to challenge a group or a system of individuals that oftentimes operate within a silo to think outside the box, to bring people from diverse communities from all across our state to implement ideas that we may not be thinking about. They never promised, and we never promised, that we will give you a 100% blueprint, detail by detail, person by person, line item budget of how to do everything that was presented. The simple idea here was to make us here in Columbus think and to show us the possibility and hopefully to plant a seed of inspiration in us that we would take these ideas and take them to the next level. As a community, we may come together and say, well, this may not work for us, but this over here will. Or we may say, I like the foundation of what they've given us, let's incorporate the recently incarcerated individuals into this platform of the idea. Today was a think tank. Today was an opportunity for us to have someone from the outside, sprinkled with a few people that live here, to come in and say, we have examined your system, we've examined your government, we've looked at the data, we've done some preliminary research, this is where we are, here are some of the young, bright minds, the future leaders of tomorrow, those who will stand on our shoulders as giants. Here they are, and this is what they're presenting. So I just want to say thank you. This was absolutely amazing. You didn't spare any of our feelings. You told the truth. Whether or not we liked it, you told the truth. You put the information out there. You brought some creative ideas we have not thought about. There are some things that you said that had me to thinking, and I'm like, hey, I want to follow up some folks on some other things. This is great. And I hope that the leaders in our room, and I see some very strong leaders in our room, some that was here, some had to leave, some of them that are younger, some of them been here for a while, some of them that have shown the ability to adjust. Because ultimately, I think we all live under one goal here, and that is we want this city to be great. We want Columbus and West Georgia to be the best place in this state, and I know that that is possible. We're fantastic right now, but we can be greater because no one and nothing is perfect. But as we grow, we want that statistic to be low. We don't want our population to decline. We want it to increase. So we're listening to the minds, young game changers, those that could possibly be residents of our future. Come here and tell us what we need to do to get ready for the next level. And I think we're ready. And I just want to stand up and say thank you. Thank you for what you have left with us. Thank you for this very detailed booklet. As you were presenting, I was going through the booklet, and there is certainly more details in that book. A lot of data. You guys did a lot of work. And I hope that you have your jobs when you get back, because you put a lot of work into this. Put a lot of work into it. So thank you again. And I just want to wrap it up.
Executive Director here of the Young Game Changer program, approaches the stage. I do want to make you aware, just 1 second, okay? This is the final product that they've been referencing, this massive, missive, okay? We don't have hard copies enough for everybody. There are some hard copies available here today, but this lives online on the Georgia Ford website, along with all of the final recommendations of all of the other communities we've been in. So please take some time Because while this isn't a fully fleshed out blueprint, this is a great starting point for any of these initiatives. We've thought through budget, we've thought through potential funding resources, we've given you a starting line, okay? So here you go, thank you.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Representative Reese. Great comments, that was amazing. Didn't they do well? Yeah. And y'all can tell, again, I'm Sadie Krozik, I'm the Managing Director of Georgia Forward for Georgia Municipal Association. And we didn't just let them say, you got a problem. We said, okay, and now what? And that's leadership, right? It's what do we do? And all these people have full-time jobs. They're outside of their wheelhouse. They were writing with their non-dominant hand here. Like, this is hard work. This is leadership development. And they did a great job. But now it's yours, City of Columbus. Plans sit on shelves and don't do much, right? It's up to you. We are relying on you, counting on you to talk about this, to keep it at the forefront. Look around the room. There are leaders here. There are leaders not here. They need to hear it, right? How do you get it in front of them? We need you. We need champions of this plan. And that's you guys that can do that for this team, for this hard work. A third of this class is local. They'll still be here. They care about these ideas because there's some blood, sweat, and tears in them, but they need partners. They need champions. We want more and more people to hear these ideas, to start getting some momentum, getting more partnerships that some of these can be possible. It'd be good for Columbus. It'd be amazing. I'd love to see them happen. We always say, you know, we don't have plans. We don't have money. Guys, we're missing leadership. And that's where you all come in, right? So let's lead. Let's do this. I know you can do it. I know the part of our team that's local is up for it and ready to do it. And we will have this at georgiaforward.org. We'll have the recording of the presentation, we'll have the slide deck, and we'll have the digital version of the hard copy. There are a couple on the back table where you can thumb through those. We don't have enough for everybody, but we'll have all of that online so you can point that out, push that out to people, share it. We will post it on our social media, our website, and every class member here will have links to that as well. So it'll be out there. Let's get it out there as much as we can. Also want to let you guys know, if you have other people who you think would be great for this program, applications are online now. We're accepting applications for the next class for 2024. And that class is going to be in the city of Valdosta, which we're so excited to be going to Valdosta. But the same thing, we're going to take applications and candidates from all over the state of Georgia. So that's where you go there, georgiaforward.org/apply. Those will be through the end of the year. Did you have a question about the applications?
Well, I have a question. Is there, you've done this in many communities.
Yes.
Does Georgia Forward do any post-event evaluation of what recommendations have been taken?
I'm glad you asked that. She asked, have we done any evaluations of what's taking place? We're actually doing an economic impact study right now through the Valdosta State University, just a coincidence. They have a graduate students and a team that are interviewing all of our 10 Young Game Changer communities now to see what has happened. What has been the dollar investment? What of these ideas have happened? I know in my own community, we hosted in 2019, and we've had significant progress on a number of those ideas because somebody heard it in the room and said, I love that idea, and started putting their resources behind it. So great question. And that report should be out by the end of next year. We'll have that report for the impact. We've been in 10 different cities since 2012. So this is our 10th city. Also, I wanted to bring up one of our Georgia Forward board members to tell you about an event that we're doing here tomorrow. You can still be a part of it if you'd like to, and that's our Georgia Forward Forum. This concept of the Young Game Changers came out of a one-day event, which is the Forum. So Ben, if you'll come up and share a little bit about the Forum, and that'll be our last thing for this morning. After.